Hey there, Math 126 fans. I'm going to talk about Exam 1 reflection. I have individual videos about each page, and I do want you to watch those. But here I'm just going to make a few general comments to lead into that. So there is a page on your Canvas site. It's on the left that says Exam Solutions and Grade Info. And I'm filling this up now. So you can already see stats. So let's click on that and see what happens. And this will show you the overall stats. Now I will make a separate video where I explain the grades. I know it's a common question, so I don't want to bog this reflection down with that. But the median was 80%. So really what that tells you is if you're well below 80%, then you're below half of your class. So a large chunk of the class got above 80%. Typically we say you need to be averaging above 70% on everything to be ready for the course that follows this. So that's usually what a 2.0 is. I find that Exam 1 is really about one main thing, which is I want to talk to these people that got below 60%. I don't think a fourth of our class should be below 60%. Now that does happen. It's pretty normal, but I don't want it to be like that. So let's talk and see if we can make some adjustments. Remember, I'm not your opponent. Sometimes people write me in anger when grades come out. Please don't do that. Let's work together. I'm doing this summer not for the money. I'm doing it because I really am trying to experiment with things that can help students. So I hope you can realize I'm not your opponent. Okay, 27% got above 90%. There were 4 perfect exams. More than half the class got above 80%. So it just helps you kind of see where you're at. Okay? All right. There were 16% that got below 50%. So this video is mostly for them to sort of help reflect, but also for all of us. Even if the exam went well, you should look at the solutions to make sure you didn't miss on something that would have been easier to do another way. And if you did poorly on this exam, you can still recover. You could get a 3% on the first exam and still pass the class. I'll explain that in my grades video. So what do we do now? What we do now is we reflect on what worked in terms of studying and what didn't work. All right. So let me say a few general things about that. So I really want you, and I've put a lot of time into this, many hours. I wrote solutions, but I really want you to do this survey. Okay, so I have a little reflection survey. Everyone needs to do it. There was a video for each page, about a 8 to 10 minute video on each page where I work through the whole problem. I talk about it. I explain why it's valuable and how you would have seen it in your studying. But I want you to set aside some time before Sunday, open this quiz up, open up your study materials, and then answer these questions. What surprised you about the test? I want you to write a paragraph or a few sentences or anything, and you'll get credit. So how did you feel during the test? Compare it to how you felt when you were studying. This is something like no one does, and there are so many things I have read and seen about this that this is extremely valuable, and a lot of people need it now more than ever. A lot of students just take their exam and throw it away when they step out of the classroom or never look at it. Sometimes I'll have students say, why did I lose points? And then I'll look and they didn't even look at their test. So again, this is about learning this material. So we have to we have to reflect on it even if it's painful. All right. And I never mean this to be negative. I don't know what's going on with everybody, what's everyone's backgrounds. Okay. So what surprised you? How did you feel during the test? How did you feel when you were studying? Write several paragraphs. I will read these and possibly comment on a few of them, but this is really for you to think about. Okay. Next, I want you to go page by page. Open up page 1. Think about your studying. Think about what made you stumble on page 1 if it did, or even if it didn't. Everyone has to write something. Not everyone has to write something here. You can see it's worth 0 points for this part. But if you missed something on page 1, I want you to write something here. So what I did is I went through the various parts and I went through the homework. I do this while I'm making the test. I noted the similar questions in the homework and I noted the similar questions in the exams. And then I made a video where I go through the solutions and I mention that. So after you do that, here's the question I want you to ask. If you did a question that was like a question from the homework and you got it wrong on the test, go back and think, how did I feel when I was doing the homework? That's the valuable thing for us to do now. How did I feel? Was I able to do that question? Did it take me 5 tries? Did I understand? Did I use outside resources? Did I really just ask something on the discussion board and figured it out? Did I ever internalize it? And if I felt like I did, and then the exam didn't go well, that's a valuable little data point that you get to like dig into. Why did that happen? I have students that always want to meet with me and say, what more advice can you give? But I think at this point, it's kind of personal to you. You got to look at what you studied, what was on the exam, and what the disconnect was. I can tell you for certain that if you had studied the last 3 or 4, really the last 4, just to sort of be complete, old exams in my archive, you would have seen the vast majority of things that were on this test. So studying the 4 most recent exams and knowing the homework, I feel like you could do really well on this test. So if you didn't do well, then my first question would be, did you do the homework faithfully and make sure you understood it? And did you do the last 4 exams in my archive, my 4 most recent? Oftentimes just doing the 2 most recent will get you a decent grade. If you do the 4 most recent, you'll probably do really well. So I have people that say, I did all that and I didn't do well. So that's the disconnect you are looking for in this reflection. I hope you get what I'm saying. Because I'll have students get really upset with me. That always happens every exam. And I would want you to reflect a little bit before we get to that so that we can be constructive moving forward. So you can, this question's like these old exams. This is actually straight from the homework. So I'll look at that in a second. So then I do it for each one. And then you're going to end by making a few comments about how you might adjust. Try to not take offense to that. Sometimes people really get mad in there. They blame the test. I do want to remind you, you took the same test as everyone else. So if it was unfair, it was unfair to everybody. Okay. And we have students dealing with all sorts of things in this class. We have many students with very challenging situations in their lives or work or medical issues they're dealing with accommodations. What I'm saying there is people are dealing with things, but all we can do is say, we are trying to learn the material for the next course. And I can't let you through this course, even if you have other stuff going on, unless you learn the material. Okay, so we got to always circle back to this goal that you all have set. Write down your reason for taking this course and look at it each day. And use that as motivation to do the homework faithfully and to study in the right way. I hope that's helpful. Again, it always comes off as negative and I always offend somebody. I'm not trying to do that. Okay, now let's do a brief look through the exam. Here is what I saw, just part by part. I go through in a lot of detail, so I'm not going to do that here in my other page-by-page video. But the first question went pretty well. I was surprised this was 60%. I thought it'd be like 90% of the class got it right. And the reason I thought that 90% would get that right is because it was on my test prep. It was like the exact same first question with just 1 or 2 numbers different. And then it was on my most recent exams, and there were 3 questions in the homework. So that's a really, I put that on there on purpose as a start, because if somebody gets that wrong, it's an indicator of just lack of preparation. And so that's something to think about. It's not, I'm not trying to be insulting. It's just that's the thing. But 60% got it right. Only 40% got this one right. This is an example of a question that I took straight from the homework, but it's not on one of my last 2 or 3 old exams. So again, you really need to know your homework well and know the last 3 to 4 exams well. The homework is the main thing to know well. I think if you know the homework really well, you're going to always do well on these tests. But it's nice to actually work through real exams to get a feel for what it's like. Okay, so think about why you missed that. It could be just, oh, I didn't think that was coming from the homework. Okay, I get it. So, but again, if that's all you're missing, maybe you lost a point or 2 there. I mean, I feel like even if you had no idea, you would still take the derivative and find some vectors. Okay. The next one was to find a sphere and then find when it intersects one of the planes. I had something very similar to that on the test prep. We had several homework questions. What worries me more is if you didn't have the equation for the sphere, that's a lack of preparation thing. You can prepare however you want, but if you have some goal, some reason you're taking this course, write it down, look at it every day, and use that to try to take the homework as seriously as you can. And if you're stuck, you have the Math Study Center, you have quiz section time, you have the discussion boards. There's lots of places to get help, but you got to dig in. I can't do that piece for you. Then we have the equation of a line. About 60% of the class got this. Kind of the theme throughout this test is about 60% of the class is doing really, really well. When I say 60% of it got it, I mean 60% got a perfect score. There's also another 20% that missed like 1 point. So we really have like 75% of the class doing very well. I just tell you that for the stats, because I have people emailing me saying this is too hard, there's too much stuff. Then you should ask your classmates. I have a place on the discussion board where you can share or ask your classmates about how they studied. So it isn't just on me to sort of give you advice to be successful. Talk to them. Several of your classmates have this figured out. And if everyone does well, it's not going to hurt your grade. I will adjust and make the median higher. But an 80% is below a 3.0 typically, so we're not there yet. Okay, the equation for a plane. This question I think I asked almost identical on one of my 2 most recent exams. So if you had no idea how to start it, I was a little surprised that 40% missed this. But now you know. That's what I hope this helps. 80% knew the name of that thing, so that's good. This question, it was like 25%. I accidentally erased this. And I talk about this in some length in my post. I pulled this from a homework question, the idea here. So I didn't realize this was going to mess people up as much as it did. This is X, this is Y, this is Z. The language is directly from this homework question, and you had to eliminate the parameter. A lot of people knew that x squared plus y squared had to be 1, but they couldn't find these other ones. Watch my video on that. Most people got the arc length right. Most people got the angle of intersection right. The TA was a little frustrated because the TA graded this one and said he was surprised at how many people did not know how to find the T and the U. That was something that came up a lot during our review and during class. Oh well. Again, not the end of the world, but I'm just talking through what I saw. A lot of people got the curvature right, which is great, but the surprise is it wasn't more. There are some people that didn't write anything or didn't know a formula, so that's a preparation thing. That has nothing to do with your math skills. So some people that are messaging me and they say, I'm just deficient in math. You got to show me. There are things you can control. We want to control those things. Know the homework well. Don't leave anything blank. Check what you can check and prepare. The last question was from this recent homework question here. And I thought this would be a challenging one for students to finish because you had to think through the same thoughts you had to think through in the homework, which was that the direction vector for the line is perpendicular to the normal vector for the plane in order for them to be parallel. I go through that in more detail. So now is the time to reflect. And then based off of this, I think you will be able to approach the homework going into exam 2 and studying much better. So if the exam went poorly, you can be upset, but think of it constructively. Do the reflection carefully and think about how you can adjust moving forward. I hope that makes sense.